What's poppin', y'all? Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I am your host, Peeweedaplug, Big Stacks Porzingis, 1/4 through the wire, number one Knicks fan in the world, aka Mr. Know-It-All. And here we are, the season premiere of the NBA. We are back. We had 2 games today. I know a lot of y'all just watched them. Great games for me because I've just been wanting to see basketball back. Even in a short off season, the basketball thirst was extremely high. So, my reactions. First and foremost, I don't want to overreact to anything, but I am going to take some of this with a grain of salt. The first game, we got the Brooklyn Nets versus the Warriors. I think this is a real good game to start off the season with. You know, Kevin Durant has been gone for a while. The Brooklyn Nets on paper is one of the most talked about teams throughout the league. And then Steph Curry, the guy who kind of changed the game the last decade. We missed him last season, so to see him back on the court with Durant was exciting for all NBA fans across the world. First thing I want to say about tonight's games is the Brooklyn Nets look legit. The Brooklyn Nets look real. KD hasn't missed a beat at all. I know a lot of talk was, what if KD doesn't come back? How is he going to come back? You know, is he going to lose a step or anything like that? Which I think was silly personally, because I don't think KD's game is so much relying on his athleticism. Of course, he uses that to his advantage when he can, but I think his game is really skill based. You know, he's one of the best pure scorers we've seen, and I think a lot of that is relying on his skill, the ability to shoot the ball from anywhere on the floor, from any direction. It's top notch, second to none. So the Brooklyn Nets are real. KD is KD. You know, he's looking like the KD we all know. And then on top of that, aside from KD, I just think that Kyrie is sharp. You know, as much as people talk about Kyrie over the last few weeks or the last few months on social media about the things he's said in the media regarding to not speaking to the media, him on IG rapping, him doing the Sage thing, the last preseason game against Boston, all of that, Kyrie came out sharp. He hooped. He looked really good, and he looked locked in. So, you know, I think when you get 2 guys like that with the ability that they have, and like again with KD, Kyrie is as skilled as they come. Some people argue that Kyrie is one of the most skilled, if not the most skilled basketball player in the entire league on just a skill-based thing. So I agree. I think these 2 guys are just skillful basketball players, and I think at the end of the day, when you're relying on skill and you have that pure skill, it makes you just so dangerous. And I think they have a lot of guys like that. Spencer Dinwiddie, another skilled guy. Joe Harris is one of the most skilled shooters that we have in the league. Karis LeVert came off that bench and ran that second unit. The way Steve Nash envisioned him when Steve Nash gave him that role, he talked about having him play a Manu Ginobili role. And that's, you know, I don't want to compare Karis, especially not after one game, to Manu, but he played it like how Manu would. You know, we saw some assists. We saw him being super aggressive, looking for a shot. He had a good all-around game, and the Nets look like a team that has been playing together for the last 3 or 4 seasons. So I think that's a big, significant thing to take away, especially with the East being as open as it is. The Nets are legit, and we need to start talking about and looking at them as a legit contender after this one game, because this told me a lot about the Brooklyn Nets specifically. Now on the flip side, the Golden State Warriors, again, we're not going to react or overreact to too much because it is game 1, but they have some issues there, and they have some holes there. It's going to be very interesting to see how they work around things over the full course of the season. Andrew Wiggins looked absolutely terrible. As a guy that's had hope in Wiggins over the last few seasons, because I do think Andrew Wiggins is a solid NBA player. I just think that the hype that he brought with him into the league, coming out of high school, going to Kansas, being the number 1 overall pick, a lot of the hype was unfair. You know, they were putting him on magazine covers, the next LeBron, and different things like that. And that made the expectation be here when he's just this type of player. So I don't ever think that his production will match the expectation or the hype that came with his name. And that's unfortunate, because he is a solid NBA player. He is solid. Today's game doesn't show that he was solid. It was one of the worst games I've seen him play. But all around, as just an NBA player, Wiggins is a solid NBA player. But it was bad tonight. It was bad. And it just showed that, you know, as dangerous, and we talked about it a lot in the party, but as dangerous as Steph Curry is as a shooter, and the gravity he creates with his shooting ability, it shows that a lack of shooting around him really kind of makes that minimal. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they work around the lack of shooting that there is, because there is no Klay Thompson. And Kelly Oubre isn't necessarily a bad shooter, but he's not Klay Thompson. Wiggins, some nights he looks like he can shoot it at an average rate. Other nights he's below average. And then it's like, if he's not knocking down shots, where do you put him? You know, a lot of times in Minnesota, which was one of my biggest criticisms against Wiggins, was like his game hasn't grown since he was in high school. He still has like that same game that we've always seen from him, where it's like the mid post, he likes to back, you know, do the turnaround, back down, fade away type jump shots, or just really low quality, inefficient shots are kind of what Wiggins have kind of got used to playing in Minnesota. So now you're coming in Golden State and you're playing with a guy like Steph Curry and an actual system that, you know, is built around shooting. It's going to be interesting to see how they work with that, and if Wiggins is going to be able to slide in and find some type of comfort there, because they're going to need production from him. I can see Kelly Oubre fitting in, you know, being a catch and shoot corner 3 type guy. He has the energy. We saw some putback dunks, but it's going to be tough. Wiseman had a really good game as a rookie. Hard to fully judge it because he did play a lot in a garbage time after they were down like 40, doing a lot of his work there. But I think he was there. He was present. I saw some good moments from Marquise Chris that I liked. But overall, their team is going to need some work. Definitely can tell that that's a newer, put-together team. And that's why before the game, I talked to my dad, and he asked me like who I had in these 2 games, and I told him I had Brooklyn smashing the Warriors, and he was like, "Damn, you got Brooklyn, but you got them smashing them? You think they're gonna?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because the way that Golden State plays, it's going to be a lot for those guys to learn. You know what I mean? They're going to have to learn how to look for Curry, learn how to read him coming off the different screens, if he's flaring, if he's curling. You know, the timing. It's going to be a lot for them to learn how to screen for Curry. This isn't the typical guy that you're just setting a down screen for. You know, this is a guy that'll come up, fake back, then he wants to come off. It's going to be a lot for them to learn, and that's where I think Draymond Green is going to be a big help. From production level, Draymond Green isn't going to be a help in scoring buckets or anything like that, but being another voice on the court, another guy that's familiar with how to play in that system and how to make Steph Curry, you know, play at his fullest potential. He'll be crucial there. But I think over time this team could be a lot better than they showed today. But it does make me worry a little bit that, you know, if they don't start to pick things up sooner than later, they could be one of those teams that are looking on the outside in, because the West is so stacked. The West, you know, all respect on Steph Curry's name and the Warriors and what they've done, but the West is stacked, and if you don't come correct at the beginning of the season, it can come back to bite when we start getting closer to the playoffs. Now, the second game of the night, the Los Angeles Lakers against the Clippers. Definitely a fun game, especially when you see the Lakers and their ring ceremony right in front of the Clippers' face and all of that. I know that gave the Clippers an extra edge or motivation. But I had the Clippers in this one. That was my pick. I was trying to get my co-host from Through the Wire, Mike, to bet. We almost had him, but he pulled back at the last minute. But yeah, Paul George came out and played the type of game I wanted to see him play. He finished with 33 points, shot 5 from 8 from 3. We had a nice game from Kawhi. But a couple things I want to point out about the Clippers that I did enjoy, besides the statistical numbers and everything like that. They play with a natural flow, and we talked about it on today's podcast, them playing in the triangle and Lou Will saying he wanted to run the triangle and different things like that. I like it because it gives them some type of foundation or a set, and it gives them some structure. They have enough talent, but with their talent, I felt like at times last year they kind of just rolled the ball out there and was like, hey, we're talented enough to just make something happen all the time. And you know, as we know, the NBA just doesn't work like that. So now I feel like they have some structure. What I liked about it was you're allowing Paul George to kind of play some point guard. He's getting them into the offense a lot. that I saw today. You also have a guy like Batum who can be a bigger guard. So as much as I talked about them last season, lacking that point guard and that floor general, this type of structure allows them to still flourish and have a natural flow without having that lead guard general. And I feel like that's genius of Tyronn Lue to do that, because this is something that they can, that helps them play to their strengths, because they do lack that point guard. They didn't address it this offseason, and I don't see them really being able to pick up that type of point guard. I think the point guards that'll be available will kind of more so be like George Hill, which is a defensive-minded 3-and-D type point guard. Derrick Rose will be an attacking guard, looking to score and things like that, but a natural floor general just isn't out there as of now. So I think that was genius. I think that is going to be something that can give them an edge and a rhythm early on in the season to solidify themselves as a contender, because I still do view them as that. And it's time for us to just get past last season, last playoffs. It's happened. It's over. Hopefully they're thinking the same way of just letting that go. The Nuggets won. It is what it is. You have new players, a new coach, a new staff, and it's time to focus on what's ahead and not in the past. I think that's why it was crucial for Paul George to come out and have this game, so he can be reminded early in the season, you are Paul George, you are a max player, you are one of the best players in this league, or one of the better ones, and you belong here. And I think the Clippers need to be reminded of that, because it's a lot of stuff that was going on and said in the offseason, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of blaming, and a lot of talk. But just go out there and play, and let the play speak for itself. The Lakers, this is typical Lakers, typical LeBron. First game, we're not going to put too much emphasis on it. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean too much to us. We're focused on the playoffs and winning the championship and things like that. But we're going to use this to, to figure them out so that we have an advantage later on. So it's not too much to take from the Lakers. Definitely was rusty. They came out and put themselves in an early 20-point deficit because they just couldn't make shots. I don't think the Clippers outplayed them that much. I just think that they missed a lot of shots that they normally and eventually will start to hit. I will say that it's going to be interesting seeing them work Montrezl in. He had some nice moments off of that bench, but defensively and just chemistry-wise, they were kind of out of sync. A lot of times, they just felt like they were out of sync. Dennis Schroeder trying to get the ball to AD a few times. Where turnovers kind of felt like they may have been forced, or the timing wasn't right. Things that eventually they'll be able to hit on and get in sync with, because we got to remember, this isn't a typical season. They didn't have the typical training camp and the typical time to gel, mesh, and learn each other. And I think this season we'll see how crucial that is when you're putting so many new pieces together. Some teams it'll be easier than others because some teams didn't make as many drastic moves. But when you're a championship caliber team like the Lakers, and you're bringing in guys like 6th Man of the Year Trez, 6th Man of the Year candidate Dennis Schroeder, these are guys that they're gonna have to start getting used to playing a certain way, and I think it'll be okay. But if I'm the Clippers, I definitely want to take this and try to take it into a stride. This is a good way to start the year for them because they are going to be underdogs. The Lakers are the favorites, and everybody is going to reflect on last season. So they're going to have to do a lot to be taken serious. And I think they have to show themselves. I think they have to show themselves that they belong, because last year was disappointing. But Ibaka looked real good. His shooting ability looks like it's going to complement the rest of the guys. And open up things for them. Lou Williams looks sharp off the bench, and they look real good. I'm happy with the Clippers. Like I said, if I'm a Laker fan, or if I was somebody that's supporting the Lakers, wouldn't be too much of a big deal. This is what LeBron does. You know what I mean? That's why I picked the Clippers, because I just felt like they would come out more energetic, more caring, and more serious. LeBron and the Lakers, they're going to coast, and they're going to just focus on the playoffs and winning that thing at the end. So that's my review of today's game, the first day of the NBA. Hope y'all are all excited as I am. I'm super excited about tomorrow because we get more games, more teams, and my team will be playing. Tomorrow I'll probably have a reaction for y'all, but today is a wrap. Appreciate y'all for watching as always. Peeweedaplug, I'm out.